Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my CH Hanel. Enjoy the listening. One warship against a fleet humanity's unbelievable victory. The silence in Earth's primary defense control room was deafening. Dozens of military personnel stood frozen before the massive display that dominated the far wall, their faces illuminated by the eerie red glow of emergency lighting. The holographic projection showed what everyone had feared for months. The Zovian Armada had arrived. 523 warships, announced General Takahashi, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Their forward elements will reach our defensive perimeter in less than 6 hours. Defense Secretary Chen slumped into his chair. We have 11 functional ships left, 11 against 500. He looked up, eyes hollow with the knowledge of what was coming. The evacuation transports need at least 12 more hours to get the remaining civilians off-world. The Zovian Empire had emerged from the depths of unexplored space 3 years ago, their technological capabilities far outstripping humanity's. Their demand had been simple: surrender Earth and all colonial territories or face extinction. Humanity had chosen to fight, but the cost had been devastating. Now the final Zovian push had come, and Earth stood virtually defenseless. "There's still the Defiance," said a voice from the back of the room. All heads turned toward Admiral Santos, who stood with arms crossed near the entrance. His weathered face betrayed no emotion, but there was something in his eyes, a glimmer of what might have been hope. "The Defiance isn't ready," Chen snapped. "It's barely completed its initial systems check. The reactor technology is untested in combat conditions. We can't." "We have no choice," Santos interrupted. "Captain Morgan reports that the quantum field generator is operational. The ship is as ready as it will ever be." On the far side of the moon, hidden within the shadowy depths of the Daedalus crater, the experimental warship Defiance floated in its manufacturing cradle. Unlike the sleek, angular designs of standard Earth vessels, the Defiance resembled an elongated teardrop, its obsidian hull absorbing rather than reflecting light. At just over 400 meters in length, it was smaller than most frontline warships, but its appearance was deceiving. Captain Alara Morgan stood on the bridge, her dark skin contrasting with the stark white of her uniform. At 38, she was young for such a command, but her tactical brilliance had made her the obvious choice to helm humanity's most advanced vessel. "Final systems check complete," reported Commander David Chen, her XO. "Quantum field generator holding at 98% efficiency, probability engines synchronized, weapon systems online." Alara nodded, her eyes moving across the holographic displays surrounding her command chair. The Defiance represented the culmination of humanity's desperate innovation, a ship built not just with current technology, but with theoretical physics that had been mere speculation before the war began. "Status of the crew?" she asked. "All 115 personnel report ready, Captain," replied Lieutenant Sarah Ockhaffer from her communications station. "Though I'd say there's a healthy mix of terror and excitement circulating through the decks." A ghost of a smile touched Alara's lips. "That's appropriate. We're about to attempt something that's never been done before." She tapped her command console, opening the shipwide channel. "This is the captain speaking. In 1 hour, we launch to engage the Zovian fleet. I won't sugarcoat our situation. We are outnumbered beyond any reasonable military calculation, but the Defiance was built for exactly this scenario." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "Every one of you volunteered for this mission knowing the risks. You are the best Earth has to offer, serving on the most advanced ship humans have ever built. Today we prove that humanity will not go quietly into extinction. Today we show the Zovians what human ingenuity can accomplish when pushed to the edge. Prepare for departure." As the crew moved with practiced efficiency to their battle stations, Alara turned to Chen. "What's the latest intel on the Zovian formation?" Chen brought up a tactical display. "Standard echelon approach. Their heaviest warships are at the center, with screen vessels forming a defensive perimeter. Their commander is likely aboard the dreadnought in the central position, this one." He highlighted a massive vessel nearly 2 kilometers in length. Alara studied the formation. "Their arrogance works in our favor. They're not expecting significant resistance. When they detect us approaching alone, they'll assume we're on a suicide run." "Let them," Chen observed. "Uncertainty is our ally," Alara replied. High Admiral Zexkar of the Zovian Empire stood on the command deck of his dreadnought. the Eternal Dominion, watching with satisfaction as his armada moved toward the human homeworld. These primitives had proven unexpectedly resilient, but their resistance was finally at an end. "High Admiral," his sensor officer called. "We're detecting a single human vessel approaching from behind the satellite they call the Moon." Zexkar's 4 eyes narrowed in contempt. One ship. The main screen shifted to show a small, dark vessel, moving steadily toward the Zovian formation. Scans indicate it's approximately 400 meters in length, unknown configuration. Energy readings are unusual, High Admiral. "Unusual how?" Zexkar demanded. The sensor officer's tentacles worked frantically over his console. "The readings fluctuate in patterns our systems cannot identify. It may be using some form of experimental technology." Zexkar made a dismissive gesture with his upper limbs. "It matters not. One ship cannot stand against our might, regardless of what technology they've cobbled together in desperation." He turned to his weapons officer. "Target the vessel with a standard destroyer group. 5 ships should be sufficient to eliminate this nuisance." Back on the Defiance, Alara watched as 5 Zovian destroyers broke formation and moved to intercept. "They're taking the bait," she said. "Tactical, what's your assessment?" Lieutenant Commander Jackson looked up from his station. "Each destroyer carries enough firepower to annihilate a conventional ship our size. Together, they could reduce us to atoms in seconds." "If we were a conventional ship, which we most certainly are not," Alara replied. "Helm, maintain course. Engineering, prepare to activate the quantum field generator on my mark. Weapons, targeting solutions on all 5 destroyers." As the Defiance continued its apparent suicide run, the Zovian destroyers spread out to form a kill box, their weapons charging with lethal energy. "They're preparing to fire, Captain," Chen reported. Alara leaned forward in her chair. "Now we show them what the Defiance can do. Engineering, activate quantum field generator." Deep within the ship, the revolutionary heart of the Defiance came fully online. Unlike conventional reactors, the quantum field generator didn't merely produce energy, it manipulated the very fabric of reality around the vessel. "Quantum field active," reported Chief Engineer Ramos. "Probability engines engaging." A shimmering, barely visible field enveloped the Defiance. To external observers, the ship seemed to blur slightly, as though viewing it through heat ripples. The Zovian destroyers fired in unison, 5 devastating energy beams converging on the human vessel. But instead of striking their target, the beams appeared to bend around the Defiance, missing it entirely. On the Eternal Dominion, Zexkar stared in disbelief. What happened? How did they evade 5 synchronized attacks? "Unknown, High Admiral," his sensor officer replied, confusion evident in his voice. "It's as if the probability of our weapons hitting them simply collapsed to 0. Alara allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. "Probability manipulation successful. The quantum field is functioning exactly as designed." She turned to Jackson. "Return fire. Show them what else this ship can do." "Targeting solutions locked," Jackson responded. "Firing quantum-phased cannons." Unlike the massive energy weapons of conventional warships, the Defiance's main guns were relatively small apertures on its hull. But as they fired, reality itself seemed to distort around the energy beams. The attacks didn't travel in straight lines. They bent and twisted through space, finding impossible angles to strike all 5 Zovian destroyers simultaneously. The alien vessels had no time to evade. The quantum-phased energy tore through their shields as if they weren't there, striking with surgical precision at their power cores. All 5 destroyers erupted in silent explosions, debris scattering into the void. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, alarm signals blared as Zexkar's bridge crew scrambled to understand what they had just witnessed. "Impossible," Zexkar snarled. "No single ship could destroy 5 destroyers in a single salvo. What is this trickery?" His tactical officer's voice trembled. "The human vessel appears to be utilizing some form of quantum technology we've never encountered before. Their weapons didn't follow normal spatial rules. They bent around our defenses." For the first time in the campaign against Earth, Zexkar felt a flicker of uncertainty. "Deploy the second wave, 20 cruisers, surround that vessel and eradicate it." As a much larger contingent of Zovian warships moved to engage, Alara knew the real test was about to begin. The quantum field generator was performing admirably, but it had never been tested against many opponents simultaneously. Captain 20 cruisers on approach, Chen reported. Their firepower is substantial. Engineering, divert additional power to the probability engines, Alara ordered. Tactical, prepare for multi-vector defense and counterattack. Communications, send a message to Earth Command. Initial engagement successful, beginning Phase 2. As the Defiance prepared to face the next wave of Zovian attackers, a tense Admiral Santos watched from Earth's Defense Control Center. "It's working," he whispered. "By God, it's actually working." General Takahashi stepped beside him, her eyes fixed on the tactical display showing the Defiance surrounded by approaching Zovian cruisers. "One ship against an armada," she murmured. "The question is, how long can it hold out?" Santos' expression remained grim but determined. "Long enough, I hope. Long enough to show those alien bastards that humanity isn't finished yet." On the Defiance, Alara Morgan gripped the arms of her command chair as the ship accelerated toward the heart of the Zovian formation. "All hands, brace for intensive combat. Let's show them what happens when they corner humanity." The quantum field flared brighter around the ship as it plunged into the midst of the alien cruisers, the impossible battle only just beginning. Turning the tide, the Defiance moved like a phantom through the Zovian formation, leaving destruction in its wake. The quantum field surrounding the ship bent weapon fire away, while its own attacks seemed to find their targets regardless of intervening obstacles or distance. 8 cruisers destroyed, reported Jackson, his voice tight with controlled excitement. 2 severely damaged. But the Defiance wasn't emerging unscathed. As more and more Zovian ships focused their fire, some attacks were breaking through the probability field. "Port shield generators overloading," called out Lieutenant Rodriguez from the engineering station. "The quantum field can't collapse all probabilities when there are this many simultaneous attacks." A violent shudder ran through the ship as a Zovian beam weapon scored a direct hit on their port side. "Damage report," Alara demanded, steadying herself against her console. "Hull breach on Deck 4, Sections 12-15, Chen replied. "Emergency bulkheads holding. 3 casualties reported. Repair teams responding." Alara's mind raced through their options. The Defiance had proven its revolutionary capabilities, but they were still one ship facing hundreds. They needed to strike a decisive blow. "New tactical analysis," she announced. "The Zovians rely on hierarchical command. Their entire fleet takes coordinated orders from the Dreadnought commander. Chen, plot me a course straight for the Eternal Dominion." Chen looked up, his expression a mixture of shock and understanding. "You want to take out their command ship?" "Precisely," Alara confirmed. "If we can eliminate High Admiral Zexgar and disrupt their command structure, it could throw their entire armada into disarray." "Captain," Chief Engineer Ramos called over the comm, "the quantum field generator is already running at 110% capacity. If we push deeper into their formation, toward their heaviest defenses—" "I understand the risks, Chief," Alara replied. "But we need to capitalize on the advantage we've created. How long can you keep the generator running at maximum output?" There was a brief pause before Ramos answered. "Maybe 20 minutes. After that, we risk a catastrophic cascade failure." "Then we have 20 minutes to reach that dreadnought," Alara said decisively. "Helm, set course, maximum speed. Tactical, focus our defenses on forward shields. All non-essential power to the quantum field generator." As the Defiance changed course and accelerated toward the heart of the Zovian formation, High Admiral Zexgar watched with mounting rage and disbelief. Already, the impossible human vessel had destroyed or disabled nearly 30 of his ships without being destroyed itself. "Their course has changed," his navigation officer reported. "They appear to be heading directly for us." Zexgar's upper tentacles raised in agitation. "So they intend to strike at the head. Commendable strategy, if futile." He turned to his communications officer. "Order all vessels to concentrate fire on that ship. I want it reduced to atoms before it gets within 10,000 kilometers of the Eternal Dominion. The space between the Defiance and the Zovian dreadnought became a maelstrom of energy weapons, missiles, and defensive fire. The human ship weaved and phased through the barrage, its quantum field flickering with increasing strain as it collapsed probability after probability. On the bridge, warning signals blared as systems throughout the ship reported damage. "Starboard engines at 60% efficiency," Chen called out. "Quantum field generator temperature approaching critical levels." Another hit rocked the ship violently, throwing crew members against their stations. A power conduit exploded in a shower of sparks at the rear of the bridge. "Casualties reported on multiple decks," Lieutenant Ackhaffer announced grimly. "Medical teams overwhelmed." Ilara knew they couldn't sustain this assault much longer. "Distance to target?" she asked. 30,000 kilometers and closing," replied the helm officer. "But at our current rate of deceleration due to damage, we won't reach optimal weapons range before the quantum field fails." Ilara studied the tactical display, noting how the Zovian ships had formed a near-impenetrable barrier around their flagship. Then her eyes fell on a secondary readout, the power levels of the probability engines that worked in concert with the quantum field generator. "Chief Ramos," she called over the comm, "what would happen if we diverted all power from the quantum field to the probability engines for a single focused manipulation?" There was a stunned silence before Ramos responded. "In theory, we could create a massive probability collapse, forcing a specific outcome in local spacetime. But, Captain, the energy requirements would completely drain the quantum field. We'd be fully vulnerable." "For how long?" "At least 45 seconds before we could reestablish even minimal field integrity." Ilara exchanged glances with Chen. In space combat, 45 seconds was an eternity, but the alternative was a slow, certain defeat as their systems failed one by one. "Prepare for probability collapse," she ordered. "Target a direct spatial translation, putting us within 1,000 kilometers of the Eternal Dominion. All weapons to focus on their command center the instant we arrive." "Captain," Chen said quietly, "that's effectively a suicide run." "No," Ilara replied firmly, "it's humanity's best chance." She opened a shipwide channel. "All hands secure for extreme maneuver, this is our moment." Throughout the Defiance, the crew braced themselves, many saying silent prayers or final thoughts to loved ones they might never see again. "Probability engines at maximum," Ramos reported. "Beginning power transfer from quantum field." The protective field around the Defiance began to fade immediately, allowing several Zovian weapons to score direct hits on the hull. The ship shuddered violently. Probability collapse in 3, 2, 1. Reality itself seemed to bend around the Defiance. For an instant that stretched like eternity, the ship existed in all possible locations simultaneously, then collapsed into a single point in space, directly alongside the massive Zovian dreadnought. On the Eternal Dominion, alarms screamed as the impossible happened. The human ship had somehow transported itself past all their defenses, materializing less than a kilometer from their hull. "Impossible," Zexkar roared. "All weapons fire immediately." But the Defiance had already unleashed its full arsenal. Quantum phase cannon fire ripped through the dreadnought's shields as if they were tissue paper, targeting command systems, weapons arrays, and power nodes with surgical precision. "Direct hits on their command center," Jackson reported, his voice rising with excitement. "Their primary power grid is destabilizing." The bridge crew watched in awe as explosions blossomed across the massive alien vessel. But their victory was far from secure. The Defiance hung vulnerable in space, its quantum field still offline, as the remaining Zovian ships turned to engage. "Quantum field generator still powering up," Rodriguez called out. 30 seconds to minimal protection." "Detecting multiple weapon locks," Chen warned. 20+ ships targeting us." Ilara gripped her armrests, her knuckles white. "Hold position. Continue firing on the dreadnought. Every system they lose increases our chances." As the Defiance poured destruction into the Eternal Dominion, the Zovian vessels closest to them opened fire. Energy beams and projectiles streaked toward the vulnerable human ship. "Brace for impact," Ilera shouted. But before the barrage could hit, something unexpected happened. The weapons fire from a group of Zovian cruisers struck several of their own vessels that had been maneuvering for position. "What the hell?" Chen asked, staring at the tactical display. Lieutenant Okafer's console lit up with incoming transmissions. "Captain, I'm detecting confusion in the Zovian command channels. Ships are receiving contradictory orders. Some are firing on each other." Understanding dawned on Ilera's face. "We hit their command and control systems. Without clear leadership from Zexkar, their rigid hierarchy is breaking down." Indeed, across the Zovian formation, chaos was spreading. Some ships continued to target the Defiance, while others attempted to assist the crippled dreadnought. Still others, receiving garbled or conflicting orders, fired upon vessels they perceived as behaving erratically. "Quantum field back online at 30% capacity," Rodriguez announced. "That'll have to do," Ilera replied. "Helm, put some distance between us and the dreadnought. Tactical, target any ship that follows and looks like it knows what it's doing." As the Defiance pulled away, the massive Eternal Dominion listed to one side, secondary explosions cascading through its hull. The command heart of the Zovian armada had been fatally wounded. For the next hour, the Defiance executed a brilliant tactical retreat, picking off confused Zovian pursuers while watching the alien formation disintegrate into isolated groups. Without their High Admiral's coordination, the rigid hierarchical Zovian command structure proved to be their undoing. "Captain," Chen said quietly, standing beside Ilera's chair as they monitored the continuing dissolution of the once mighty armada, "I think we've done it." Ilera nodded slowly, her exhaustion evident but her eyes bright with fierce pride. "Send word to Earth. Tell them the Zovian advance has been halted. Their fleet is in disarray." She paused, looking at the damage reports streaming in from throughout her wounded ship. "And tell them the Defiance is coming home." 3 days later, in Earth's primary defense control room, Captain Ilera Morgan stood before the assembled leadership of Earth's military and government. Her uniform was crisp, despite the bandage visible at her collar, a reminder of the wounds she and her ship had sustained. Defense Secretary Chen, who had doubted the Defiance's readiness, was the first to speak. "Captain Morgan, your actions have given humanity something we had lost: time. The Zovian fleet has withdrawn to regroup. Their casualties were significant, over 100 ships destroyed or disabled, including their command dreadnought." "And High Admiral Zexkar?" Ilera asked. "Confirmed dead," Admiral Santos replied with satisfaction. "The Zovians are in disarray, fighting among themselves for who will take command. Our intelligence suggests it may be months before they can mount another coordinated assault." "Months we desperately need," added General Takahashi. "The success of the Defiance proves our quantum technology works. We've already begun retrofitting our remaining ships and accelerating production of new vessels incorporating these systems." Ilera nodded, but her expression remained serious. The Defiance's success came at a cost. 27 crew members lost, and the ship itself will require extensive repairs before it can be deployed again. "Those repairs are already underway," Santos assured her. "And your crew's sacrifice has changed the course of this war. For the first time since the Zovians appeared, we have hope." As the briefing concluded, Ilera found herself standing alone at the massive viewport overlooking Earth's night side. The lights of cities below shimmered through breaks in the cloud cover, cities that would have been reduced to ash if the Zovian armada had reached Earth. Admiral Santos joined her, his weathered face solemn in the reflected light. "You know what happens next, don't you?" Ilera nodded. "The Zovians won't make the same mistakes again. When they return, they'll have countermeasures for our quantum technology." "Probably," Santos agreed. "But that's always been humanity's greatest strength. We adapt faster than anyone expects. By the time they return, we'll have a fleet of ships like the Defiance, not just one." "And captains to command them?" Ilera asked. Santos smiled slightly. That's where you come in. The Defense Council has approved your promotion to Admiral. You'll be overseeing the training of officers to command our new quantum fleet. Ilara's eyes widened in surprise, then understanding. Because no one knows better what it takes to fight with this technology. Exactly. Santos turned to face her fully. The Zovians thought they had us beaten. They thought they understood the limits of human capability. You proved them wrong, and in doing so, you may have saved our species. As Ilara contemplated the stars beyond Earth's atmosphere, the same stars that had nearly witnessed humanity's extinction, she felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. But alongside it was a fierce determination. The Zovians had made a fundamental error in their campaign against Earth. They had pushed humanity to the brink, believing it would break them. Instead, it had forced humanity to innovate beyond all previous limitations, to reach into theoretical physics and pull out miracles. One ship had turned the tide against an armada. When the Zovians returned, they would face not just the Defiance, but an entire fleet born of the same desperate ingenuity. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to show the galaxy that underestimating them was the last mistake any species should make.